And today I'm going to talk about the assassination of Tsar Alexander II. First, we need to understand First, we need to understand one thing about his rule, how his rule began, to understand the trajectory upon which he will be moving throughout his life and the statecraft which he will be applying to his country. His ascension to the throne became in tumultuous, shameful, and devastating times after the defeat in Crimean War, in which Russian elites finally understand that limiting industrial development and maintaining system of serfdom, which is basically was a slavery, was unacceptable for their times. And if they wanted to continue the existence of their empire, they had to do something about it. And right after his father's death, Alexander II comes to power and becomes the new Tsar. One of the first things he does after the end of the war, in 1861, he abolishes the serfdom, but unfortunately he does so in the worst way possible. He forces many noblemen to give the sword of their land to the serf community which they previously owned, both serfs and the land. But unfortunately, serfs didn't become just new landlords overnight. They were forced to pay the debts via taxes to the state for their freedom. And the noblemen who were supposed to receive a payment from the government due to the fact that the government allegedly was buying those serfs out of the serfdom never delivered. Actually, they would never delivered the money, and the peasants have to pay those taxes until the 1910. And this was one of the worst way possible to abolish slavery and serfdom in Russia. Second, second thing in his heavy-handed approach to the governing the country, despite the fact that many saw him as a liberal because he made many great reforms, actually creating many civil positions, the ability to elect the judges in the cities and the villages for the courts. But it was overshadowed by his terrible, bloodthirsty, and cruel treatment of the Poles after and during the rebellion of 1863, when he attempted to forcibly conscript free Polish men to serve as civil servants and into the army. This caused the rebellion, which he crushed with a great amount of blood and suffering, despite the fact that he could solve that with very cheap compromises. And now we come to the first assassination attempt on him. First assassination is done by Dmitry Karakozov, former peasant who received his freedom just recently. He was impoverished and lost everything after the abolishment of serfdom because the part of the land which his family received from their noblemen was barren, like it was infertile, and also he had to work off season, like many other peasants work off season in the city, and his condition of life were terrible, and all of the peasants surrounded him. That's why he attempted assassination on the Tsar as a vengeance for the fate of his family, and his overall class and fellow peasants. But this assassination attempt failed. Second assassination attempt happened in the Paris World Fair in 1867. It was attempted by the Antoni Berezovsky in 1867. He was a former Polish nationalist who participated in the rebellion and fled to the France after the defeat. And in France, he attempted to assassinate the Tsar, and again he failed. And now the third assassination attempt by Alexander Solovyov. He's the opposite of the Korokozov. He is a nobleman who was impoverished again due to those reforms, but because his family had to give the third of their land to the serf community which they previously owned, their financial condition became worsened and continued to worsen with time until they became impoverished and landless like many other noblemen in Russia, and viewed the Tsar as a tyrant who didn't uphold his part of the social contract, in which no nobleman served like a civil servants and soldiers and officers, and in return for their service they owned the land. And he perceived that those reforms were betrayal to the nobility by the Tsar. He attempted to assassinate him and failed. And now let's talk about the Народная воля, a radical leftist group who believed that Russia could skip the capitalism part when serfdom is abolished. They believed that bourgeoisie is evil, is equally evil as aristocrats, former feudal aristocrats, and they believed that the Russian people should straight up go to the socialist republic in which everyone will be equal, and they believed that revolution would happen via constant terror attacks and violence and mass murder of the government officials, which will show to the people that the tyrannical government is weak and they could rebel against it very easily. So they devised the fourth assassination attempt on the Tsar, because previous three were made by the, let's say in modern language, lone wolves. They planted a bomb in the train, and when bomb exploded, it killed everyone in the train except the Tsar. So this attempt is a failure. Fifth assassination attempt. Народная воля planted explosives in the Winter Palace basement. In explosions, 300 people died. And there was a lot of blood. But again, Tsar managed to escape unscathed. Sixth and final assassination attempt. Tsar Alexander II got in. Bomb was thrown in his carriage. After carriage exploded, he exited the carriage, and right after he did so, the second assassin throw another bomb right under his feet, after which exploded, torn off his legs, and 4 hours later he died from the blood loss. It was again devised by the Народная воля, and this time they succeeded. Aftermath of his assassination. In aftermath of his assassination, Народная воля and every other liberal and leftist organization were crushed, killed, executed, and or exiled outside of the Russia, so as a vengeance for the Tsar, and all civil liberties which were given by the Alexander II were revoked. And his successor, his son Alexander III, revoked any remnants of democracy, election, and self-governance in the Russian Empire. He forbid the election of the judges in the courts in the cities and the villages, and he became one of the most authoritarian rulers of the Russian Empire. Here's my sources. Thank you very much for your attention. So I also wanted to add to my presentation that throughout my research I found out many interesting things about this period of Russian history. For example, that many of the offspring of those liberated peasants and serfs had to toil for 3 generations until the revolution of 1910 to pay those taxes which were debt to the government for their freedom. And also public and world reception of on assassination of Alexander II was viewed in the world, mostly in Britain, UK, and US, as a death of a tyrant rather than a liberator. and liberal reformist who improved his countries. And then he left a legacy of the decaying empire, which would fall with his grandson Nicholas II. Thank you for your attention.